Hi guys, and welcome to Success4MEETS. I'm here with Robin Waite, and we're going to chat about his work, what he does as a business coach, and the type of sort of coaching that he does. Also, more about the man himself, more about how he feels. He's a family man. I know it's very important to him. On his website, if you go on there, it's one of the most specific things he points out. It's very down to earth, and that's what attracted me to his work in the first place, that he's very much working with you, and it's not about the pretense of some of the sales. It's actually about the work that he's doing. So Robin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to this.
That's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to speaking to you as well. So Robin, for anyone who's coming across your work for the first time, just give us a brief overview even of your background and how you got started in coaching.
So I haven't actually been coaching that long, so just under 2 years. But in terms of how I sort of got to the point of coaching, so I left school at 18, didn't plan to go to uni or anything like that, and then I got a job as a systems analyst. So that was essentially kind of building systems and databases and stuff like that to make people unemployed, which I didn't realize as this naive little 18-year-old that that's what the end result would be. But it kind of paid well as a job that, you know, when you're fresh out of school. Sort of a few years into that, I realized that actually people were losing their jobs. But what I'd done is the systems I'd put into place helped grow the business from about sort of £800,000 turnover up to about 1.5 million. But as a result, the workforce had shrunk from about 15 members of staff down to 8, and 5 of those were my direct responsibility. So I basically wanted to employ people, not have them fired or made redundant. So I thought I knew I wanted to set up my own business, wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So I had a bit of a hiatus. I started buying and selling laptops just before the bubble burst. And I remember in about 9 months, I made 40 grand, just over 40 grand cash profit, all declared, obviously, above board. I was the bubble burst literally within the space of about 2 weeks. So I was selling high end, but grade 2 listed high-end laptops. So they're about £2,500-3,000 a pop. And in the space of about 2 weeks, everybody cottoned on to what I was doing, and a load of people started doing the same thing. And the prices dropped from about 2.5-3 grand down to £800 overnight. So it's literally all of my profit was wiped out. So I did what every sensible 22-year-old does at that point. I booked a holiday and bought 2 cars with the cash. I saved some as well. And then whilst I was out in Florida for that holiday, I had a friend who from the old company he wasn't one of the ones that got made redundant actually, but he had left the company. He said, "Oh, Rob, I'm doing some IT stuff. I hear you're working with computers. Should we join up?" And we set up a web design company in 2004. Went through, it's a brilliant little business, local business. So we used to employ apprentices from the local area. Who's sort of anywhere from 16 up to 21, sort of very green, not very good at, hadn't done much programming or anything like that. Within 6 months, we typically had them trained up to be very competent programmers doing .NET and all sorts of sort of fancy stuff with coding. And we grew that to about £250,000. We had 4 or 5 members of staff. And I realized that I wanted more. My business partner didn't. So he just wanted to be basically doing freelance web design and not speak to anybody, which is fine. Some people want to do that. So he left the company about four years ago. And at that point then, do you want the full story? I realise I'm kind of rambling a little bit.
No, of course. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I had an instance. So now my business partner's gone, and I still had a few members of staff. And I remember this guy came into my office and he said, "Oh, I want a website for my business." Okay, well, yeah, we can do that. We do websites. Well, basically, I'm retiring in 18 months, and I'm going to sell a business. So he ran a little sort of mechanics, doing tires and exhausts and stuff like that. So he said, "I want to sell it in 18 months' time and use the money to retire, but it's not bringing me in enough money yet. I don't think I can sell it for enough." I was like, "Okay, so tell me more." So he wanted to grow it from 250,000 to 500,000 pounds, and I was like, "Okay, but you probably need a bit more than a website." And I started to explain to him about sort of customer journeys and how much average customer lifetime value and fun stuff like that. And started working out some numbers, and I showed him that actually to grow his business that much, he needed 250 new clients over the next sort of 12 months. And I got the big hand. He went, no, I'm not interested in any of those numbers. Just build me a website. And I was like, that's not gonna that's not going to cut it. You can't, in this day and age, you can't just have a website. You've got to do all sorts of marketing and advertising and whatnot. And so anyway, that meeting lasted all of about 5 minutes, and I sent him packing with a copy of my first book, Online Business Startup, which he tried to give back to me because he was a bit surprised that I was giving him a gift. And I said, no, it's just go and read the book and it'll show you what it's all about. But anyway, as a result of that, I kind of realized that I didn't, I was reaching a point where I didn't really just want to build websites anymore, that I'd been in business for 15 years by this point, and I'd worked with so many hundreds of businesses that actually my knowledge was much deeper than what I realized it was. So you mentioned just before we came on air about my breakdown. So this was so this was ultimately, this is what, and I'd had my first child, Poppy, by this point. We had a planned cesarean for them both, so we had a D-Day delivery date for Soph, my youngest, and it was about 3 weeks ahead of when I eventually had this breakdown, and I realized that I was just in this business, it's bobbing along, and I just wasn't really very happy. And people looking down on the web industries, it's free, cheap DIY, Wix. That's all you used to hear about all the time. Not that there's anything wrong with Wix. It's a perfectly decent platform in the right hands. But and yeah, I went out. I'm a keen cyclist. So I went out with my cycling buddies, and remember going down there's a listed categorized climb near us. It's the only categorized climb in Gloucestershire. And we'd been up it and we were going back down it, and I was hooning down this hill. I hit just over 50 miles an hour for the first time ever on my pedal bike. Just pretty quick. Most people get scared doing 50 miles an hour in a car. So yeah, I was on a bike. And I got to the bottom and then just got totally overwhelmed. I just had a complete mental breakdown. And my cycling buddies were like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just mechanical. I just made up an excuse." And they disappeared. We were going home anyway, so they disappeared back to the cafe. And I ended up next to a train line, basically just contemplating, I put all this effort into growing this business and wasn't happy with it. And, the pressures just get a little bit too much from time to time. And I'm not, probably wouldn't have done anything. So I don't think there was ever really any kind of danger to me or whatever. It just happened to be a quiet spot to kind of contemplate things. But a train went flashing past, and I kind of thought, well, what if I had been underneath that train? All of this stuff that had been, and there's a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes as well, but all this stuff kind of whizzing around in my head. And then I immediately thought, well, I'm not going to do that. So what am I going to do about it? And I went back to my wife. So she's heavily pregnant, just started her maternity leave. Money is obviously an issue because we're also thinking about moving house at this point. And I said, "Darling, I don't want to build websites anymore. I want to build businesses." And she went, "Right." What do you mean by that, Robin? And I said, "Well, this whole web thing, I've been doing it for a long time. I've helped a lot of businesses, but actually I think I can more than that. I'm thinking about changing my career." And she's like, "Oh, what do you think about it?" And that time I didn't actually know. I just knew that I didn't want to be doing what I was doing any longer. So I talked it through with my life coach, and basically about 2 years ago, we came up with the concept of business coaching. So that's what I do. That's a very long-winded version of it.
No, it's fantastic because I really wanted to get into the whys, and people need to connect with your story before they connect with the work that you do. So that was fantastic. And going back to something you said really early on in that, you said that you were working at a company that you realized later on when you were very young, realized they were putting people out of work. So you obviously had a very moral and ethical way of working and felt a responsibility for those that were affected by your work. So is that something, I think that's amazing, but there's something that obviously is carrying over to what you're doing today?
Yeah, I mean, I have a very honest approach to, especially from a coaching perspective, you have to. For a long time, my wife actually said that I should have been a counsellor, because one of the things I like to do, I think I'm quite good at doing, is listening to people and being quite empathetic to their situations. And so, yeah, I've always had that. I wouldn't say I've had it's not a caring and nurturing thing. It's just honesty and integrity. And they're kind of my core values. So when I get presented with a challenge by a client nowadays, I try to deliver the message as nicely as possible if there's something I disagree with, but I have to tell them that, no, there's a better way to do it, or have they thought about doing it a different way? And that's the joy of coaching, because you do change lives. And probably I've been doing it throughout my career. like not just since I started calling myself a business coach 2 years ago, but actually I've been doing it throughout my career. And I want people to be successful. Like,
Yeah.
I actually don't care about myself, and that sounds a little bit that sounds a bit weird when I say it like that, but actually I'm more interested in helping other business owners now to be successful than myself. And it brings success naturally. Like, people are interested obviously to hear the stories and things like that in the journey, but they see that actually I'll go to the end of the earth to make sure their businesses succeed.
Yeah, it's something that came across when I watched your videos. That's why I reached out to you. Our mission here at Success4 is to promote safe self-development. What we started this because we wanted people to, when they go into self-development, they're very vulnerable. They're at crossroads in their life. They don't get put in a course that's not suitable for them and end up spending all their money, and they're literally down on their knees anyway. So we wanted to have a platform where they could go and find coaches that would be suitable for them and just try things out. And it's evolved into completely different, like it's evolved in different ways of that now. And that's why I connect with you. And it's funny you said integrity there. We interviewed a guy, I don't know if you heard of him, but he's called Evan Carmichael, and he's quite a big name on YouTube. And he's got a book out called One Word, and we interviewed him, and his one word's belief. Ours was integrity. So to hear you say that, it's actually really nice, because that's what we're trying to promote back into the coaching world, is integrity, working together. And actually, if the coach and if that client isn't suitable for your approach, you pass it on to someone that is, because they'll reciprocate that in eventually.
Yeah.
And that person will remember that. And that seems to be your ethos as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of my core values is to make sure that because that relationship is so important between coach and client, if I don't see that there's a good fit or that I can't help them, I won't sell them coaching. That's the right thing to do it. And even no matter how much I need the money, I push myself to one side, because this has to be the best thing for the client. And one of my core values, so there's a lot of coaches out there who are in the sort of £500 to £1,000 a month sort of bracket, or even more than that. And to most small business owners, that's actually not accessible. If you're only earning $1,000, I've got clients who started off with, when I started working with them, on £1,000 a month, turnover. Richard, who's a web designer, over the course of 12 months, I've managed to, in 3 months, we had him to £2,000 a month. In 8 months, we had him to £3,000 a month. And we're just over 12 months in, and he's just about to break through £4,000 a month.
Brilliant.
Now, if at the start, if I'd been charging him £500 a month, he couldn't have afforded my program. He's got 2 young kids and a family, and they want to then move out of rent accommodation into a house. So for me, it's really important, and that's why I've got I have a group coaching program. This isn't I'm trying not to do a blatant ad here, by the way.
That's okay, of course.
But I have a group coaching program that is affordable for small businesses for that exact reason. So at least they can have the touch points with a coach and feel that they've got somebody to turn to, and a business partner in that sense. And again, that makes me feel good about myself, and I don't mind saying that. It's not egotistical. That's the part where I know I'm able to give something back. Yeah, I've got the bigger, sort of blue chip clients, the 7 and 8 figure law firms and accountancy practices who pay me good day rates. But it's also really important to me to make sure coaching is still accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I think that's what I really liked about your work, and I like the fact that you're a family man. Having children, this is a question that I don't think gets asked enough. How has having children changed your way of working with people, your business strategies, just your relationship with who you work with? I suppose I don't have children, but I hopefully have some in the next couple of years. Yeah. And how has that changed your way of working with people? You see them in a different light? Does it just, your importance is different?
Yeah, I suppose if you take my journey, the story which I told at the start, when things were, actually both of my life-changing moments. So there was one which came before that, but both my life-changing moments were both based around the time that both my children were born. So, and what I mean by that was I knew that with the agency, it was like a constant grind. It was like ridiculous hours. You're constantly building websites and coding and servers going up and down and support requests. It was like a constant grind. I knew that wasn't going to be a good life for me and my family in the long term. I did the previous time. So just before I met my wife, actually, I burnt out. I got ME. So I was really quite ill. I won't go into that in too much detail, but that again started to make me realize I had to make some sort of life-changing decisions. And that one of the best things about coaching is that it's, if I want to work with a client all day, I can, but equally, if I just want to fill my days up with 2-hour coaching sessions, I can do that too. And if I only want to do 1 or 2 a day, I can. And that gives me the flexibility and freedom to do things like the nursery drop-offs. My wife's a lawyer, so she's really busy she works 4 days a week now still. So it means that she can pursue her career without it jeopardizing the family. And I can be there to kind of, look after the girls and things like that when she needs me to. And I think that's the ultimate sort of work-life balance. It's not perfect. Like, don't get me wrong. There are times when it's very stressful and maybe the kids are playing up or something like that. Or, maybe I've had a client who took me on a bit of an emotional roller coaster. But ultimately I am a master of my own destiny now. I can work whatever hours I please.
I think you said there's getting the balance behind the scenes for yourself. So even being able to help people and being that right mindset. Do you think there is a call for having that in a business, like building a business online book, a part of the chapter saying, look, this is how to fit it in around your family. Don't forget about the kids. Don't forget about why you're doing these things in the first place. Yeah,
massively. And, so I've noticed the thing that a lot of entrepreneurs say, and I found myself saying this as well. I used to say that I did it for my family, but I don't do it for my family. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for my family, because they created a lot of the changes in me. And I think have you ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill?
I've read bits and bobs. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So he talks about, there's a section in it about where he talks about men and sexual maturity, and it happens around sort of the 40s and 50s basically.
Yeah.
And actually I think most of it is based around when men start to have a family, because it does shift your focus quite dramatically, very subconsciously, but you do grow up. You kind of, you're forced to in a way, because most men want to be kids forever really. But but it's how Napoleon Hill kind of wraps up is I'd recommend that anybody watching this actually grabs hold of a copy of it. And there's an updated version for the 21st century, but just a few of the key concepts which Napoleon Hill introduces around goal setting and the desire to succeed, what activities you do, and then that emotional maturity. And it happens to women as well, but typically it happens either side of having children. So it either happens in their 20s or it happens in their sort of mid 40s to 50s. Once the kids are kind of grown up and left the home, and then they feel like they've regained a bit of control again. For men, it happens sort of actually whilst the kids are growing up. And I can't remember the reasons why, but when you know that, you can start to spot what's going on.
Yeah, and I think it's incredibly important as well, because like, as you said, that you've always seem to have done well. You've put yourself in businesses, you've made businesses succeed, but it wasn't until you found a balance. You seem to be someone who, correct me if I'm wrong, who does things very integrally. You sort of pull things apart. You're very integral, and you build a business and it does really well. But is there a kind of like an element of, I know I have an element of almost like workaholic sort of element, and then it's trying to balance that out, find a way to feel okay and not do anything. How do you relax, I think is what I'm going for. Yeah.
I get it. So I actually really struggle with the transition from Friday to Saturday. I don't struggle with going back to work because I love what I do. So that's easy. And it's that, but by the way, when I say that, it doesn't mean that I don't love my family as much as I love my work, because obviously I do, but it's and I think it's because of my system sort of background. I'm very methodical, very mathematical and analytical. When I then have to switch that off and start playing with dollies, because I've got 2 daughters, I actually find it really difficult.
Yeah.
And so the only way I find to manage that, so I have something called a 4-minute rule whenever I walk into the house at the end of the day. So you'll understand this when you have kids, Richard.
Yeah.
So literally, when you walk into the house and you've had a busy day working, coaching, doing whatever, and the kids, they're, oh, daddy, they want to. So give them a big hug. Don't say anything. Give them a big hug, or just say hello. And the wife wants a bit of attention as well, so give her a kiss. But then go and do something else for 4 minutes that doesn't involve family. And it just means you ease yourself into the house and the household, and then, right, okay, deep breath, and then we can go and be, the best dad that you possibly can be. But Saturdays is hard because my day's been full of, Saturday then I want that, and it is a bit addictive. That's what work creates for me. My job creates for me, but it's because I love it. So in terms of like winding down, so I actually do quite a bit of DIY, and I find that actually, so kind of my business is like a big project. So actually I have kind of fairly big projects at home. So at the moment I'm repointing a wall, which sounds dull as ditch water, but is the most cathartic thing ever. So I've done a tenth of it. It took me 5 hours last weekend. So that's like, and I said to my, right, it's going to be one bag of mortar every weekend for the next 10 weeks. Sorry.
I like that. I like the fact that you've got a system in place for that as well.
Yeah, I was like, I'm going to work out how long it takes me to do a bag, how much it covers, and then right, that's going to, and I'm hoping it might take 8 or 9 weeks. 10 is quite conservative, but I'm also building an outdoor home office as well.
Blimey.
So it's pointing at the weekend and home office in the evenings.
So you're very creative. You like to make things and look back and see, look what I've put in place. That's very much how I am. The founder of Success4 is as well. We like to make things. He's an entrepreneur. He makes a business and then he'll move away from it. I'm the creative side of it. I'd make all the media creative side and the social media, but it's all about making things. I think there's a something that's a commonality in people maybe like ourselves. I'm not sure if I can say that is that we're not very passive. We have to make things. We're not the sort of people to sit and watch telly very often.
Yeah, it's very much so. I think it's kind of like the empire builder brain. Another good author called Daniel Priestley talks about the reptile brain, the monkey brain, the mammalian brain. They're both quite well known, but they're like filters to get to the empire builder brain.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a bit of a frog in my throat.
That's okay, mate.
And, we managed to break down those filters and be able to access our empire builder, without too much hard work, basically.
Yeah, and it's a great way to be. How have you seen over working in the tech world, and you're actually seeing how the way the internet and the way social media has changed the way business is done? Have you seen that change in the last 3 or 4 years, and where do you see that going in the next maybe 2 or 3?
So the last 3 or 4 years, I think, technology's changed massively, but it's also had a massive influence on people's mindset around how easy or hard running a small business could be. So, a really simple stat, really, the internet's just turned 25, basically. It turned 25 last year, officially. Go back to predating the internet, there was 468,000 registered small businesses in the UK. Now there's 3.9 million. And it's no coincidence. It's happened at the same time as the internet. So the internet has made starting a business much more accessible, much easier, because you can do all of the paperwork and stuff online at Companies House. You can have a company registered, a trademark registered. You can have a domain set up. You can do it all in about 24 hours. It's so easy and so cheap. And so lots of people have done it. And we've got access to this global marketplace. We can trade with anybody around the world. But if you do the maths, so 468,000 to 3.9 million, there's about 9 or 10 times the number of businesses now in the UK, and I guess worldwide, if the trends kind of stack up. So the reality is every industry is saturated by a factor of 10. There are 10 times as many people doing what you're doing now than there were 25 years ago. So actually it's 10 times harder to compete in this marketplace. And I think up until about 3 or 4 years ago, people weren't really taking advantage of all of the different online tools, SaaS tools, software as a service tools that were out there. Now everything is like cloud-based. It's YouTube, social media, it's Zero. It's, you hear all the same terms coming up. And actually the function of running a business is easier because of all those tools. But actually the practicality of running a business, which is 10 times more, it's 10 times more competitive than it's ever been. And I actually see it potentially in the next 2 or 3 years. I think there's a potential that the number of businesses could double.
Yeah.
I think it could grow to 7 or 8 million small businesses. And actually that's great for the economy. And great for like lifestyle and family and people's sort of mental health and things like that. Because I think people will start to realize actually it's not easy anymore, but so long as we follow a system and a process, like we can compete in that marketplace and we can make money. And actually we may not all be .com millionaires now, but we'll have like Richard, my web design, the web design guy, moving from £1,000 a month to £4,000 a month. And he had, when we first started, he wanted the agency, he wanted the big bucks and the staff and stuff like that. And now he's realizing him and his wife can go anywhere in the world and he can still build websites and bring clients in and still make £4,000, £5,000, £6,000 a month.
Yeah,
Actually,
I think
a really decent living.
It's a very good living. And I think what you've hit on a very important thing now is we see a lot of young people wanting to be next Gary Vaynerchuk, wanting to be the next Tony Robbins. And there's this whole glean of, it's almost like, I spoke to a lady called Chris Godinez, and she deals with people with post-traumatic stress disorder and narcissism. And we talked about there is this element of coming into the coaching world massively of a mental health issue. There's a massive narcissistic overtone, and not to get like too bad about it, but it's quite scary that people think that they can do network marketing and be like Gary Vaynerchuk. There's this bizarre, I know that you've seen it because I've just seen your eyes light up, and it's like there's this bizarre world of burying your head in the sand and putting your bum up in the air.
It's I call it millennial mindset. And it's a bit like a virus. It's slowly, and again, millennial mindset, the millennial generation, it's no coincidence that crosses over with the start of the internet, basically, or the birth of the internet. Where all we expect is instant gratification and, that we money for nothing, basically. We feel that we deserve it. There's just and actually the worst thing is, it is a bit, I said it's a bit like a virus. It's kind of spreading to some of the elder generations, because they're hearing so many young people go, oh, the internet's easy and blah, blah, blah. It should be, we know our way around it. And they're thinking, well, we should be able to do that. And I was trying to think of a situation where, maybe my dad was doing something. So my dad used to be in the Essex police force, and it was something which I considered when I was at 17, 18, thinking, what's my next move going to be? And I remember him turning around to me and just saying, it's just not the same as it is anymore, son. And he said, he's in the Essex police force as well. This is back in the 60s and 70s. So it's not as brutal as it is nowadays. But dad was just like, you'll get hurt. Like you'll get a lot of, it's hard. Like, again, like policing has been harder than it's ever been. So, I think you're quite a bright lad. Why don't you think about doing something creative, start a business or something like that? I had a really interesting sort of back tete-a-tete with this guy, and I got this cold email trying to sell me social media marketing. We've all had it, right? Spam coming through. Oh, I'll set you social, but it clearly scraped data from somewhere. It wasn't personalized. There was no value in it. It was just, here's my social media packages, now buy it, right? So no human to human element to it whatsoever. There's not many things that irk me that much to actually reply, but I replied to it and I said, look, it just isn't, I can tell you're young and a bit naive. This isn't the right way to go about marketing. And I hope you don't think I'm being, patronizing or anything, but this is what I would do. And I gave him a code to one of my audiobooks and said, look, here's free code, go and download it, just listen to it and see what you think. And he came back to me recently after about 3 months and he said, Rob, in an email, Rob, thank you so much for the email. It's totally changed my outlook on things. Would it be okay if we could catch up for coffee? Cool. Okay. Transpires this chap was 21.
Yep.
Professional YouTuber, earning 80 grand a year. Been doing it since he was 14. Yeah. So like your atypical, like millennial basically. And he'd just been living in this tiny little YouTube bubble for it's a big bubble, but for him, it was this tiny little YouTube bubble for sort of 7 years, master at it. And I just found myself, I was praising this guy because that is exceptional to grow any business. Doesn't matter what platform, to any business to 80 grand a year at 21. That is phenomenal. But you know what? He turned around to me and he said, it's just not good enough. He said, I've got friends who are on £800,000 a year and I want that. And I was like, you're nuts. Yeah. You're driving around in a Range Rover. You're driving around in a Range Rover I want. Yeah. Like, you should be super proud of yourself. Like, just that's not what life is all about. Go and enjoy having that money.
Yeah, we've said in this podcast with Chris Godinez that we did, it's a mental health issue. This need for more and more and more, but this need for fame. Yeah, like the entrepreneur used to be a person who started up businesses, moves on. I mean, you get the odd one like Richard Branson who becomes the face of it in them days. But these guys want to be the face of it before they've built anything. How can you be an entrepreneur if you've not built one business and sold it and moved on to the next one?
Yeah,
surely you're a business owner, or not even that. You're building a business.
Yeah, I mean, it's semantics down to the definition of entrepreneur, but I think that the point you're making around sort of that mindset around it and the negative mindset around it. I mean, I had a coaching call this morning with one of my clients. She's like, I've tried everything, and it's just not working. I'm just not getting clients. And I was like, yep, you've tried it in dribs and drabs. Like, one of the things that annoys me the most is how's my motivational speaking going, by the way. um, one of the things that I find myself getting most angry about in this day and age is people who go, I tried Facebook ads, it didn't work. I tried email marketing, it didn't work. I tried flyers and flyer dropping, and it didn't work. And I was like, cool. So how often did you do your Facebook ads? How long did you do your campaign for? Oh, we just boosted a post. Right. Okay. Well, that probably answers that question then. So how long did your email marketing campaign last for? Oh, we just sent one out to a list of people who we bought off the internet. Right. Okay. Well, okay. That probably answers that one then. You know, have you been going out flyering every weekend, you know, or every week for the last sort of 3 months? Well, no, we tried it once and we didn't get any phone calls back. It's like, right. Okay. You know, things like the email marketing campaign. I've heard stories about people, you know, they'll send out their target markets, new mums, and they'll send out emails at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning during half term. And you're like, come on, think about this. Those new mums aren't going to be, or that, you know, mums with young kids aren't going to be sat in front of their computer. They're going to be at the zoo or the park or whatever. So, you know, maybe do it next week as well when they're going to be back. So it's about having this consistency to what we do. And I tell all of my clients, show up regularly and often with the same consistent message. So like be tenacious about it until it's not so it's annoying to people, but just show up all over the place.
As a coach, what advice would you give to anyone looking for a business coach? I mean, what are the sort of things to look out for? We said we want to promote safe self-development. With guys like yourself, people on our Trusted Coaches page, they're all people that we know if you went to, they would give you, either they would put you in touch with the right person or they offer you real value. How do you work with your coaches? So if someone approached you, what would be the first port of call?
So there's a couple of things which every single one of my clients has to do. So first and foremost, they'll run through an assessment form with me. And that it's a 20-point health check basically. And it serves two purposes. One, I get to know about their business. And two, it also starts to segment, because there are some people who just can't even be bothered to fill out a form. So I don't think necessarily it's about finding the right coach. The client also has to be coachable. So there's a couple of little things that sort of pop up at that very early stage. The second thing is I think every coach should have a niche. I don't think any coach can be a generalist business coach. So my niche is service-based businesses. So I work with other coaches, consultants, primarily creative agencies, because obviously that's my background. But I also work with larger time for money-based businesses like law firms and accountants. But within that niche, I then break it down. So if you are exchanging time for money, I can help you productize that and come out. So I'm quite specific about who I work with and what my coaching program looks like. And that's why I'm able to say, yes, I can work with you, or no, I can't. And this is a person I would recommend. So that's kind of the first two things is they need to have some kind of an assessment process. They're not just taking any old client. Second of all, they have to have a niche. They know who they work with or work best with. And then I always offer a free consultation, because I think it's the least I can do. If somebody's giving up their time to come and speak to coaches and find out a bit more about me, the least I can do is give them a bit of my time to build a bit of trust and rapport and work out whether we can work together or not. There are some coaches who charge for that consultation process. And I actually feel that at that point, they're looking after themselves, not the client, because they're making money out of it.
Yeah, I agree.
You know? Otherwise, I could just be doing consultations paid all day long and not actually doing any coaching. Yeah. So that is a bit of a paradigm, but and then finally, it's about I've had clients who I've started coaching with and I've had to say no to. So they've done the assessment, done the consultation. Yeah, we can work together. Done the first coaching session. It just hasn't quite gelled, or maybe it's just too much for them. So I really sorry, I just bumped the mic there, but I had a really sad consultation actually with a client, and we got about 3/4 of the way through it, and she was in her late 20s, moving out of a project management role and wanted to start doing it freelance. And I was like, this is all a bit odd. and I do operate a strike policy. So if people miss consultations, I'm like, well, you can miss it once or we reschedule it once. But if you mess me around, I don't. So she missed one and then she missed a second. I don't know why. My gut instinct told me just to stick with it. And about 45 minutes into the consultation, she said, oh, by the way, the reason why I missed the first 2 consultations with you is because I was having chemotherapy.
Oh, blimey.
And I was like, gosh, it absolutely knocked me for 6. So now I haven't just got somebody who's excited about starting up a new business. I've actually got somebody who is going through an emotional roller coaster themselves at this point. And we got chatting. I was just like, cool, tell me a little bit more about it. Tell me what's going on. She said, well, she got diagnosed sort of 3 months before and had done the first 2 rounds of chemo and just realized that there's life-changing things. She didn't want to work for the man anymore. She wanted to have a bit more flexibility and freedom. And I had to say, look, I'm really sorry, but I can't actually work with you because to extract the coaching, my first piece of advice wouldn't be you need a business coach. It would be go and recover.
Yeah.
Be really kind to yourself. And I said, I can't be, because a coach is about moving people forward. I can't be responsible for pushing her forward when she's got this illness holding her back.
Yeah, no, I agree.
As much as she wanted it and as much as I wanted to help her, I was like, it's just the wrong thing to do.
It was the wrong timing.
Yeah.
No, and it's great that you got to that, and that brings us full circle back to what you started with when you were doing the job when you were 19, and you realised that was the job was not actually putting people out of work. It was your empathy was there to start off with, and I think if that's guided you through everything that you're doing, your empathy and your integrity is really, really fundamental in what you're doing. And I like the fact that you went from business coach there to almost a bit of a life coach, but you stood back and said, "It's not the right time for you." But there might be a time in the future. Yeah. No, it's great.
Absolutely. She has actually recently emailed me a week or so ago. So I'm hoping to touch base with her just to find out how she is basically and see what's going on.
Fantastic.
But yeah, you are. And again, just coaches come in so many different shapes and varieties. I think again, it's really hard for somebody to know. It's no different to choosing an electrician or a plumber or something like that. You kind of just got to trust your gut instinct,
Yeah.
If they show up on time, if they've got a system process, they speak, they say the right things, they get you, that empathetic approach, they understand you and your business. There are hallmarks which I see. So we'll have heard of action coach. So and I don't mind naming them. I know some fantastic action coaches, but again, they have a specific sales process which they go through, and it's the same for every client. And again, I think it should be that initial consultation should be tailored for every client. And it shouldn't just be forcing the sell. It should be not suggesting necessarily that's what happens in action coach, but it shouldn't just be about the sale. It should be about the person. And I also, there are hallmarks which coaches have as well. And so you can, if you start to spot their clients. So there's one locally who, whenever anybody starts working with her, immediately they say, her clients say, I'm full to capacity and I've doubled my prices. Right. And so I've spoken to a couple of her clients and delved a bit deeper, and they've said, no, that's what she tells us to say.
Right.
So there's no grounding. There's no basis for that. You're not adding any extra value. And she was like, no, this is just what she tells us to do. And I was like, and so I know that hallmark now. And I know for me, if I'm going to tell clients like Richard, if I'm going to tell Richard to double his prices, then I'm going to help him justify it to his clients. So what value can we add? What nuts and bolts can we tighten up? Are there any extras we can chuck in here? How are you going to make that customer journey better for your clients? So there's a lot of value which you've got to back it up with substance. You can't just double your prices willy-nilly.
I know. Yeah, no, I totally agree. What we do here at Success4, we don't charge for anything we do. So what we do, anything we do on the website. So what we do is we speak to people like yourself, people like-minded people, put them on the Trusted Coaches page, and we'll share their work on the website and throughout social media. It's just a hub to share things. We put podcasts out, videos out. We'll share your stuff on our social media, and we feel like that's actually building a really good rapport.
Definitely.
And it's working really well. It's taken 17 months. We earn our living through video production. I'm a filmmaker, and the other guys they're all video producers. So off the back of that, we often get an event to go film. We'll do a promo video, or last night we were doing a live feed on YouTube for a Google Hangout, and that was a paid one. And the person's, I think he's got 90,000 subscribers come in, and they do it, and we produce it all live. So we built up the relationships first, and then like he's coming in today, so we're going to do a podcast together with a couple of cameras in the studio and go live on his Facebook. We don't charge for any extra bits because it's content. And I think content's hugely valuable, but shared content, I feel, we'll wrap it up soon, but I feel like, what is your take on people not sharing coaches sharing each other's content? There seems to be a block here.
That just goes against coaching, in my opinion, because it's coaching is all about being abundant. And whether it's money or knowledge or whatever it is, wealth, it doesn't matter at all. Coaches, in my opinion, should be inherently abundant, willing to give. We're here to serve, basically. And I think if somebody's not willing to, within reason, I will share. I mean, if there is a nefarious coach out there, yeah, I won't.
Of course.
They'll go to one side. But if any other coach, I'd be happy to promote any other coach, because it's stuff that I'm brilliant at. Productizing services, that's my bag, working with service-based businesses. But if an e-commerce business, B2C business comes to me, I'll be like, well, I'm not the best person for that, but I know somebody who is better to speak to about that.
Yeah.
So again, it's that abundance about we should all be sharing stuff. And it's a big thing about authors as well. So, with my 2 books, I did both of those on what we call sort of group accelerator programs. So just so we had the accountability, and so many people held back from giving away all their knowledge in a book. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Because we can give away the knowledge, but where business owners struggle is the implementation.
That's it. Yep. So, I said, someone wrote, Kanye West, bless him, said, knowledge, ideas are power. I'm like, they're not. It's the implementation of the idea.
Yeah.
I get the same idea as you, but you will do it different to me.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's bizarre that people think that they keep their ideas to themselves. You've got to sign non-disclosure things for an idea. It's like, it doesn't matter. They'll forget the idea.
Yeah.
Or even if they put it into practice, they won't do it as well as you, because they had to come to you to get the idea in the first place.
Yeah, 100%. And with my books, it's all about just, and my videos and everything, I just try and give away as much value as I possibly can. I had an interesting experience at a networking group, and there was a lady there who was in her 80s, and she sold a really successful interior design company down in London before she moved up to the Cotswolds. And she was like, why do you give your books away? Why do you give away so much stuff? Why, you should be charging for this. You should be. And I was like, I'm not going to scrap over £5 for a book. Like that's not going to make me rich. Helping people will make me rich, in spirit. And, wealth isn't all about having money, but equally the bit of my business, which makes me money then, is working for law firms, accountants, and creative agencies, my clients on a one-to-one basis. And she just couldn't see it. I don't think it wasn't an age thing. I think it's, there's obviously plenty of people out there who just don't give stuff away for free.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to fight over £5 for a book. I'd rather just give it to somebody and let them enjoy it.
Yeah, and then get feedback from them and just build that rapport. So, do you want to tell the audience your book, the titles of your books, and where people can get hold of them?
So both of my books are on Amazon. So on either I've got them both actually now on Audible, Kindle, and paperback. So first one's Online Business Startup. So that's kind of like Ron Seal. It's about starting up a business, putting it online, and then marketing it. So that was my first book. And then the second book, I did have a copy handy next to me.
Fantastic.
But Take Your Shot. So this is actually a story about one of my first coaching clients, a guy called Russ, who is a golf coach. And I tell it as a story in the book. It's a narrative. Or parable. And it's got sort of 4 or 5 of my coaching tools that every business I work with gets access to, basically. And it just takes you through Russ's journey from sort of struggling golf professional to, exchanging time for money and clients not showing up, to, well, around about page 74, I kind of have artistic license, and it moves much more into his goals. So he wanted to do more public speaking and teaching other golf professionals like how to grow their businesses. But it actually, it shows people how to productize what they do, basically, and move out of that time for money trap. So I think it's 215 odd reviews now already on Amazon for that one.
Blimey, that's really good. Fantastic. Well, we do a thing called Evan Carmichael's sent in some of his some intro videos, and we review his book for Success for Good Reasons, which is something we're going to launch soon. We've only just moved into these offices, so we're getting used to our offices, but we'd love to review it and put it on our website, because I really love the idea of you writing it as a story that's really unique, really writing someone else's story as in evidence-based and putting it in there. That's something I've not heard of before. I think it's really good. Love it.
Yeah, no, it's quite a challenge to write, because the other one was like how to is like very kind of like, vanilla, just taking people through the steps. So this one took quite a lot of creative imagination to, I had the background of the story with working with Russ, but actually to fill in all of the blanks.
Sure.
So I had to draw on my own personal sort of journey as well. So there's a few bits, Russ has a wife and a couple of young kids as well, but actually I don't know Russ's wife and his kids. So I had to draw on my own experiences. And then he meets David, who's the business coach, which is kind of how I see myself in 20 years' time.
Yeah.
Sort of out on the golf course, knocking a few balls around, meet this interesting guy and maybe just say, oh yeah, I'll help you out. So it's quite fun. Most people have said that this is a public service announcement. It takes about 90 minutes to 2 hours to read. And most people say that when they pick it up, they can't put it back down again.
That's great.
So make sure you got 2 hours to read it.
That's great. So we'll put links to your books and to your website in when we put this up on YouTube, and when we've obviously put the SoundCloud and the iTunes podcast out. So can you tell our audience your website where people get hold of you on social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is just robinwaite.com. That's with an E on the end of it.com. And then all of my social media channels are normally /Robin M Waite, M for Mother Waite. So youtube.com/Robin M Waite. Twitter is Robin M Waite, and LinkedIn as well, I think.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time. It's been fantastic. And it was really, really nice to get to know you better and chat to you. We'd love to have you. If you've got any content you want to send in, just send me the links and I can put the content on the website. There's no charge for it. We just want to connect with people, and we'd love to do another podcast with you and review your book. That would be fantastic, and
Absolutely.
help you sort of get your message out there and just share your work. And if you're ever in Norfolk, come and see us, because we're down in Norwich. You're more than welcome to pop into our studio, into the TV studio, and come do some bits with us. But yeah, thank you for your time. And
absolute pleasure.
Guys, please do go and check out Robin Waite's work, his website, and obviously his book. And I'm really looking forward to actually reading that book, because I think that's an incredible way. I've not heard anyone do it in that creative way before. So really impressed. Really, awesome. Really good. All right,
thank
buddy.
You.
I'll let you go. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for listening. It's been Success4 Meets Robin Waite. Check out his work, check out his website, check out his social media. And thank you, Robin, for your time.
Pleasure.